Mr. Speaker, I wish to focus my remarks on Tobago specifically. Mr. Speaker, permit me to first of all to thank the Minister for his acknowledgement of the way in which the Tobago House of Assembly handled itself with respect to the timeliness of its budgetary submission to the Prime Minister and to the Minister of Finance. The respect for the law and its obligation is a quality for which Tobagonians are well known, and it is commendable that the Minister would have publicly recognized the Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Finance for their efforts in this regard. Unfortunately, however, Mr. Speaker, although having received the required documents from Tobago on time, and although having consulted on more than one occasion with the THA officials, the Minister appeared to have neither fully appreciated the contents of the documents nor the subsequent oral submissions made by the THA, nor the enormity of the development challenges that Tobago face. Mr. Speaker, the Minister boasted in his budget statement that Tobago would receive some 3.309 billion or 5.3% of the 2014 budget. What he tried to sweep under the carpet is the fact that the allocation to the Tobago House of Assembly for fiscal year 2015 is actually 2.45 billion. And this is ordinarily referred to as a budgetary slate of hand. And the fact is that, contrary to the Minister's boast, the share of the national budget actually allocated to the THA is at its minimum, given Tobago's well-established developmental needs. It is much less than the 8% that was proposed as part of their failed attempt to seduce Tobago to get their votes in January. Indeed, the Minister, with all the smoke and mirrors at his disposal, attempted to hoodwink the people of Tobago by referring to the allocation for use in Tobago by the member for Tobago West and his other cabinet colleagues, even though he knows that such expenditure, in accordance with the THA Act, does not form part of the THA allocation, and that the Dispute Resolution Commission ruling speaks quite correctly to the allocations that are to be made to the THA and THA alone. So, Mr. Speaker, the allocations to major specific projects and programs to aid in Tobago's development have fallen woefully short for yet another year. The case for the Assembly's scholarship program for young people is a stark example. Given the well-known human resource capacity constraints to Tobago's development, the Assembly requested some 6 million to finance this program in 2014. Mr. Speaker, the Finance Minister allocated 1 million to the Assembly, an amount that cannot even cover the cost of Tobagonians already registered for the 2014 academic year. But the problem does not stop there. Take the case of the infrastructural development at Cove that is so critical to transforming the Tobago economy. The 2 million allocated for capital works at the business park for 2014 can hardly build a factory shell of average size. This is coming from the same minister and the same government that continuously proclaim the need to diversify the Tobago economy. Mr. Speaker, despite all the rhetoric about an appropriate share of the budget for the THA, the allocation to housing for Tobago provides an excellent example of how these UNC words are one thing, their deeds are another, and never shall the two meet. In fact, faced with the excess of 6,000 applications for public sector housing in Tobago, the allocation of 28.4 million for all housing projects and related activities will result in a situation in 2014 where the Assembly has financing for the construction of a maximum of 25 homes in Tobago in the next year. Compare this with the funded provision for 2,000 units in new projects in Tobago. And as a matter of fact, the member for Oakwood East recently, just before me, spoke about these new projects in Trinidad. And Mr. Speaker, where is the equity here? Where in Tobago, There's only allocation financing here for 25 homes, and in Trinidad, the funds provided for 2,000 units. This could never be fair. Mr. Speaker, how does the minister explain the meager allocation of $8 million to complete the Scarborough Library in the face of a requirement for $40 million for a project that is long overdue, largely because of sporadic and insufficient funding? How can $8 million be enough to complete the Shore Park Cultural Complex when the project's completion costs are currently estimated at $75 million? And what they got was $8 million, Mr. Speaker. Why does the minister believe that $2 million is sufficient to allow the Assembly to continue to protect Tobago's heritage in the next fiscal year through the Heritage Land Trust? With which THA Secretary did he consult in his effort to impose a so-called Northeast Tobago Growth Pole Plan on Tobago, when the Assembly has already articulated its views in its recently updated Comprehensive Development Plan for Tobago, a copy of which I am aware was passed on to the Minister of Finance? If the minister truly cared about Tobago's young people, how does he justify his minimal allocation to Tobago's Young Professionals Program in the face of a request by the THA of $12 million? We are here if we are to assist in a resurgence of agriculture in Tobago to contribute to the nation's food security. How does the minister explain the meager $5 million allocation for agricultural access roads in Tobago? $5 million out of a budget of $60 billion to develop some of the most fertile lands. And when you're talking so frequently about growing more food to bring down the food import bill. And they want to go to Guyana to develop land to produce the same things that they fail to produce in Tobago. How does the minister plan to explain to hundreds of Tobago families that there is no allocation for CPEP in Tobago, fiscal 2014? I would like the Minister of Finance to explain that, because the member for Urupuch East just spoke about CPEP and boasted about CPEP in Trinidad. Why wasn't there any allocation for CPEP in Tobago, Mr. Speaker? How does the minister explain away the fact that his budgetary allocation of $19 million to URP in Tobago falls way below the $65 million spent in fiscal 2013 and the $70 million requested for fiscal 2014? And why, with development spending so critical to islands taking its rightful place in our country, does the allocation for the development program represent only 19% of the Assembly's stated needs? All of this in the record-breaking largest budget in the history of our country. So, Mr. Speaker, if the government is serious about accelerating development in Tobago, be it with a marina, an industrial seaport, an aquatic center, or with a facility for research on indigenous Tobago products for export to the world, not only would they have funded existing projects to their speedy conclusion, but they would have also taken the bold step to allow THA, with its BAA1 credit rating, early approval to borrow on the local capital market to finance its own development. And more immediately, we would have drawn the lessons from the Prime Minister and the Attorney General's ill-fated attempt to obstruct the THA and private investors on the Millshelf project, and openly declare once and for all his support for the Assembly's involvement in public-private partnership project finance arrangements, just as he planned to do for state enterprises in Trinidad, and with the full support, as necessary, for the central government. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is proud that in less than 2 weeks she has foisted on the population an ineffective version of proportional representation. Yet, the Prime Minister and her government are prepared to studiously ignore a process in which the people of Tobago have been involved for over 6 years and are begging for her engagement. The Prime Minister is prepared to disregard her open pledge to the people of Tobago during the Tobago House of Assembly election campaign, And it is evident that on this matter, this government is bent on ignoring the people of Tobago for exercising their democratic right to reject the most incompetent, the most corrupt, and pumpkin-infested government that this country has ever seen. I can give the Prime Minister and her collapsed Finraft the assurance that the people of Tobago will remain strong, resilient, and focused, and will not be bribed or bullied into submission. I am confident that the Tobago House of Assembly remains ready to engage the central government at any place and at any time in order to bring a swift, dignified resolution to the long-delayed matter of internal self-government for the people of Tobago. However, their patience is running thin, and I caution this government against continuing its devious and cynical ways in this regard. And as we listen to the Minister of Finance make his allocation with respect to the university campus in Tobago, we wonder whether he knows that this too is another pumpkin patch, tended only by the UNC on lands hastily acquired by the economic cabal. Would the Minister publicly express his view on the need for the THA to be respected in this and similar developmental plans for Tobago? And I'd like the Minister in his response to respond to this. So, Mr. Speaker, just as Tobagonians on January the 21st of this year sent a powerful message to the partnership that they had had enough, the people of Trinidad have taken heed and await their turn on October the 21st to send the same message, the same Tobago message, even louder and clearer in order to return some sense of sanity and decency to the management of the nation's affairs.